I am a Marine Corps MARSOC operator. I was stationed in Camp Lejeune for most of my career. I started off as a regular infantryman 0311. I got quickly bored of mowing grass, cleaning weapons, and standing in formations for hours waiting for commander to spill some bullshit safety briefing. I decided that I wanted to do little more with my Marine Corps career, and I went up MARSOC selection and eventually I became a Marine Raider. For those of you having no clue what I am talking about, MARSOC stands for Marine Special Operations Command. Just like Army has Green Berets, Marine Corps has us. Most of our missions were always oriented towards Middle East, Afghanistan in particular. I hardly spent any combat time anywhere else. Most of the time we are training other special operators from other countries. But occasionally we do our own training. Things like clearing ships from bad guys, or conducting reconnaissance on ASIM-sensitive objective. We do a lot. But what I am about to tell you is nothing like what I have ever experienced in my whole life, never mind the career. It all started with a simple training mission in the Caribbean. We were supposed to train with one of the Navy SEAL teams. We were going to practice raiding ships, obviously based on training location. You can imagine, this was something counter-narcotics related. We started our training journey in Honduras, working with local special operations unit, teaching them marksmanship, and some tactical stuff. We then got on a Sea Stallion helicopter and flew over to our next mission, which was to train with Navy SEALs. We were all pumped up about an opportunity to train with them. However, when we landed on our ship, we were told that SEAL platoon we were supposed to train with is not going to make it due to some real-life mission in Iraq. We ended up stuck on a ship with not a whole lot to do except turning paper targets into Swiss cheese. We were supposed to be there for a week. Because our ride was not scheduled for another week, we couldn't leave. We were bored out of our minds. Only thing we could is work out, which quickly gets old. Our last night there, we were woken up by a duty officer on the ship. We were told to grab pure shit and get in the briefing room. This was like 3 o'clock in the morning, so we thought that SEALs finally arrived. But that's not what it was. Our platoon commander started telling us that we have a real mission. There is apparently a radar hit on the ship that does not want to respond. So there is suspicion it could be trafficking ship. We were able to see a drone feed of this vessel. It was fairly large vessel, and it looked completely abandoned. There was no lights, no people walking around on the deck. It was just floating in the open ocean. Navy intel dudes thought that there are people on the ship. They are just hiding because they notices the Navy reconnaissance drone above them. It still doesn't explain why power was off, but whatever, they supposed to know what they are doing, right? We began analyzing where we could fast rope into to get more optimal position to begin clearing this thing. There was only 35 of us, so it would take a good amount of time before we finished clearing it. It took us about 6 hours to come up with a plan of how we are going to do it. We began getting our gear ready to go. We decided to hit it during daytime, since there was no visible presence of the crew or any kind of counter-air threat. Our platoon command decided that it is unnecessary to fast rope into it. We could just walk out of the ramp of CH-53 as it could easily land on vessel. Sounded like a good idea. We were all pretty certain that ship is full of drugs, and it was probably abandoned when traffickers noticed US Navy nearby. We began our flight towards the target ship. Platoon commander wanted to do a flyover the ship before land the aircraft on it. We flew 2 circles around the vessel, and did not see any activity on a deck. The sight of a ship was a bit eerie. You could see rust damage and, from what it looked like, fire damage all over. It was not in a good shape, or fit to be used for any kind of maritime purpose. After seeing absolutely no activity on the ship, our platoon commander looked a bit relieved, because he assumed that this will be an easy-peasy operation. He can put this on his evaluation report, and brag about it for rest of his Marine Corps career. Platoon commander gave order to pilot to go ahead and land on the deck of the vessel. It looked pretty empty and free of debris there, so it looked like a good place to land. Pilot slowly descended the Stallion down to the deck. He told our platoon commander that he felt uncomfortable setting his wheels on it, but he will have her about a foot away from the deck in order for us to egress. He began hovering the helicopter over the deck, and our platoon quickly poured out on the deck. Although there was no visible activity, everybody was still at the high state of readiness. Everybody had their weapons up. After clearing an immediate area around us, we continued to clear the deck, moving towards control room. I started to notice that this ship wasn't used in decades. Everything was covered with rust from the salt in the air, and it looked like the ship had a fire, but that fire probably happened 50 years ago, if not more. We kept moving through the ship, clearing every space inside. After about 3 hours, we began to relax as we realized there was nobody there. Platoon commander tried radio and back and checked Tactical Operations Center, but he couldn't get a hold of them. We were also too far away for a visual signals. We were essentially on our own. Our inability to contact our Tactical Operations Center did not throw any immediate red flags. That happened before. The platoon commander told us that he's going up on top of the ship to try to get better line of sight so he can report back. We decided to congregate on a deck after ship was called clear by our Fortune commander, as we were waiting for either Coast Guard or Navy intel folks to show up and investigate it. After about an hour of trying to get a hold of the fleet, we all begun to worry. Something just doesn't feel right about this whole thing, I thought. We spent another 2 hours battling with our comms, trying to get our PRC 150 to talk, but with no luck. Sun started to go down. Luckily we brought our night vision goggles with us. Platoon commander ordered us to mount them, in case of any threat that could pop up at any moment. At this point, we were all lost in the sauce. We were all under assumption that there would be a helicopter coming towards us. Since we lost our comms, that was a standard procedure during operations like this. But no one came. The eerie sight of blacked out ship at night did not make any of us feel any more comfortable. Platoon commander ordered us to set up perimeter security and maintain it until he gets positive comms with the fleet. We sat there for a good 30 minutes, and out of nowhere, all of the lights on the ship turned on, blinding the crap out of everybody who was wearing night vision goggles. You could hear people cussing and screaming. What the fuck? We were all in shock. Even our platoon leader froze for a good minute. We began looking around, but still didn't see anybody. Platoon commander did a net call, warning everybody to keep an eye out for any kind of threat. But we all knew this was something else. There was no threat here, just some weird shit that we've never seen before. Platoon leader quickly ordered a 4-man team to go inside and clear out control room and see what is going on there. I volunteered to go with them, just because I didn't want to sit in one place in case there was really a threat. Quickly entered upstairs, find a whole lot of nothing. Put appearance of the ship's interior has completely changed. It was no longer an abandoned, raggedy, rusted-out looking piece of crap. Everything was more or less clean and ready to be used. All of the radars and radio equipment was turned on. To our amazement, one of the gunnery sergeants killed out. What the fuck is going on here? It was not like this before. How in the fuck is this possible? We're all a state of confusion. Then we started to hear radio traffic, but it was not any language that we could recognize, and most of us have some familiarity with other languages through our training. But this was not any language heard of before. It sounded ancient, something you would hear in an alien movies. Gunnery Sergeant Janice smashed one of the radios with his buttstock. Although it was completely unnecessary, we all agreed with him doing that, because it was fucking weird. Everything here was fucking weird. Our platoon commander went up to the deck and informed everyone that he cannot get any positive comms with anybody. At this point we had no food or warm cloth, but the heater inside the control room seemed to be working just fine. Gunny Janice told us that we will have to hunker down here until we get rescued by Navy. God knows how long that is going to be. But nevertheless, we decided that there is not much we can do about it, and despite all of the weirdness we will have to spend longer than we thought on this godforsaken ship. As we sat around the control room, Gunny walks in and tells us that there are some crew rooms that were fully furnished and might be a good place to rack out. I went down with few of my squad mates to take a nap. So we did. The room was fully furnished, it even had linen. As I said, none of this was here when we were clearing the ship 12 hours earlier. I went to sleep on the couch. It didn't take long for me to fall asleep. I was having a weird nightmare, and eventually I woke. It felt like I didn't sleep. As I woke up, I heard a loud scream coming from down the hallway. I grabbed my rifle and ran towards it. I kept running, but the scream was just getting further and further away. Eventually, I ran into a locked door. I yelled out, "What the fuck? This door was not here before." I literally went down this hallway when we were coming down here from control room. Then it struck me that my squad mate was not there either. I ran back into the room just to find an empty bed where he was laying. Strangely, there was not even a sign of him being there, like an imprint on the bed sheets. There was nothing, like he was never even here. I grabbed my helmet and ran up to the deck. Again, no one was there. I ran outside screaming and yelling, but no one was there either. The whole ship appeared to be empty. A cold sensation went down my entire body when I realized I was here alone, not to mention of thoughts about teammates. Did they get evacuated but forgot about me? Well, that's a very unlikely scenario. Platoon commander was an accountability Nazi, and he would have never left the ship without complete headcount. I didn't know what to think. I went up to comms room and tried to see if I can make distress call, but nobody ever responded. All I've heard was a static on the other end. That's if there was another end. I also noticed a heavy fog that covered the entire ship. It was not unheard of, but the sight of fog was kind of a rarity around these parts. I started to get desperate. I wandered around a ship not knowing what to do next. I went up to the control room and sat on the chair. A sense of hopelessness and uncertainty began to settle in. I kicked my feet up on desk and began to drift away, when I heard, "Are you troubled, sir?" I've here behind me, as I fell down on the floor from being startled. I looked and there was a man in his 40s standing there looking at me. I yelled, "Get the fuck back." I raised my rifle and pointed at him. The guy's face expression did not even change a bit. He was just staring at me with cold, emotionless eyes. He said, "Sir, there is no need for this. I'm not here to hurt you," he said with a movie-like British accent. I asked him, "Who the fuck are you?" "My name is George, and I work on this ship." My heart nearly dropped to the ground. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. We searched and cleared entire shop, and there is no fucking way this dude would slip through. "What do you mean you work on this ship? This whole ship is fucked." "Well, she has seen better days, but I wouldn't discard her just yet. There is a lot of history inside her." "Okay, where are my teammates?" "Your teammates? Only one I have seen is you. I would have noticed bunch of blokes like you if there was more, but there is no one else here." "Who else is on this ship?" "Just me, and Will. You, I suppose you are American?" "Yes, I am." "And you are an army or something, judging by your outfit." "I am a Marine. Enough with questions. How do I get out here?" He looked at me confused. "I'm not entirely sure. What are you asking me?" "You are on the ship the middle of Atlantic Ocean. I don't think you can, unless someone comes to get you." I kept my face straight, but I was fucking terrified on the inside. "Okay, then what are you doing here?" "Like I said, sir, I take care of the ship." "So you are just floating in the gigantic ship by yourself? What kind of bullshit is that?" "Well, you see, some ships are special. This one was built by an unknown entity. Yes, you see, there is no records of this ship ever being built by anybody. Once I was serving in the Royal Navy and we had intercepted this beauty off the coast of Bermudas, and much to our surprise, we weren't able to leave. And then one day I woke up, And my teammates were gone, and I just stayed here to take care of her. After all, she took care of me, you cow." "What do you mean, she took care of you?" "Sir, you will soon see for yourself what I mean by that. Like I said, this ship is very special." He turned his back towards me and began alking away, whistling and singing some old song. "Hey, wait up, man. Shit said your teammates were gone? When was that?" "Oh, that was years ago. I joined the Royal Navy back in 1939, so you can imagine how long I was here for." My world just turned upside down. 1939, so the dude is like 100 years old then, I thought to myself. And what the fuck was he saying about ship taking care of him? All of it sounded surreal. I did not know what to make put of this whole thing. I'm talking to 100-year-old dude in the abandoned ship on the middle of the ocean. I kept thinking this was either a dream or some kind of psychosis. The man that called himself George turned around as he was walking away and said, "Would you like to join me for dinner?" I didn't say yes or no, I just followed him, as he was rumbling about the history of this ship and how it talks to him. We went to a dining room where there were tables already prepared. There were 2 bowls of soup and 2 glasses of water sitting on it. And how in the fuck did he know that he will need 2 meals? I sat on the table and carefully grabbed a spoon. George sat in his chair as well, and began talking. I knew there was going to be somebody else here one day. "Excuse me, but we have been talking for some time now and I still do not know your name," he asked. "It's Eric," I responded. "That's quite a nice name. My son's name is Eric." George's eyes began to tear. I haven't seen him in so long, quite frankly I don't even remember his face. This ship has taken all of these memories from me. I started to feel bad for him, but I still didn't trust a guy. "What can you tell me about this ship?" "Oh, she is a thing of beauty. She always took care of me while I was here, so as long as I take care of her," he responded. "What do you mean by take care of her?" "Well, you see, sometimes she needs to feed." "What do you mean, but feed on what?" His face changed as he started to get worried, like he was scared to say the truth. He looked up and looked at the ceiling. "I'd rather not say, some things better left alone." George picked up a napkin and wrote something on it. He then slid it to me. He wrote souls on the napkin. "Fuck, the ship eats souls. Is that what happened to my whole platoon?" "Walls have ears, you see," George said, smiling, "but eyesight is a problem," he continued. I grabbed my pen and wrote, "How do we get out of here?" George looked at it and smiled. "You see, she can't be hungry for too long as she starts to deteriorate, and I have to steer the ship towards where the food is, if you catch my drift." Shit, that makes sense. That's why the ship was so fucking trashed when we landed on it. And now it looks brand new. I thought to myself, how can I possibly escape this place? And only thing I could come up with without saying it out loud is sinking this motherfucker. I mean, it's still a ship after all. I thanked George and went on my way to see how I can sink it. I saw that there were rescue boats on the deck, which is how I can escape. But how to get this thing to sink? I went on top of the deck and looked to see if there was anywhere I can ram into, but there was nothing. Then it hit me. I have a bit of C4 in my assault pack. There was only about a pound of C4 along with some detonation cords and a blasting cap. It was enough to place it below waterline and make this thing go down. I went to the room where I slept and grabbed my stuff. I pulled everything out. "I would encourage you not to that, sir." George was standing right behind me. "Well, that's too bad because I am going home. If you are going to do what you are about to do, just remember that she can't die, because she is not a ship, she predates all of us." I looked at him and said, "I don't give shit, this fucking thing is going down." The speaker system all of a sudden went off with a loud scream-like noise that nearly left deaf. I fell down and reached for my helmet that had noise cancellation headphones. I put my helmet. Headphones were able to cancel some of the noise. George was looking at me with no change of his face expression, like noise did not affect him. I quickly ran down trying to get somewhere below waterline. I got down to mechanical room, and found a spot that will make this whole thing sink. I have been through some Navy SEAL demolition training, and that came handy. I taped block of C4 to wall. As I did that, the door behind me slammed shut. Fuck, this thing is not going down easily. I tried opening the door but couldn't. I already initiated the time fuse, for 3 minutes. The realization that I am fucked came when I looked at the fuse almost burned down. I was preparing to see the creator. My whole life flashed in front of my eyes. Suddenly, door opened. It was George standing there. "I thought you may be in need of assistance, sir," he said. Adrenaline rushed through my body. I yelled, "Run." We both started running up the stairs when we heard C4 go off. It shook the ship and caused a fireball-like explosion in a mechanical room. Ship began to make a strange noise that I never heard before anywhere else. It was a metal scratching sound, but it was like it was trying to talk to me. I could tell that the ship was started to take in water, as its top began to slowly rise up above the water. "Come on, George," I yelled. George and I cut the rope on the rescue boat and we both jumped on it. I started paddling away from the ship. George was looking like he was mesmerized as he saw his ship going down. We paddled away enough to see the ship get on its side and disappear under the water. George looked at me and calmly said, "Thank you." As he said it, he began to dissipate into thin air. It only took a second and he was gone. I am free now, just like that he was gone. I was shocked by what was happening. I blacked out. When I woke up, sun was beating down on my face. While I was dreaming, I was seeing George and he was telling me that I had a beacon on me that helped me get rescued. I must have forgotten that part. I actually did have it on my helmet. I looked at it and turned it on. I was floating in the open sea for probably another day or two. I could not remember, because I didn't get any water and I thought I was going to die. And then I heard a helicopter. It was Coast Guard. At this point I did not have an energy to even stand up. The rescue diver came down and grabbed me and pulled me up to a helicopter. I woke up on the same Navy ship that my team departed. I had some guy standing over me. He said he was glad that I am awake, and that he was an NCIS investigator. He questioned me about what happened. Of course I lied. Who the fuck would believe me? Turns out my platoon went completely missing. I just made up some story about ship exploding and sinking, and that's all I could recall. He left me alone. I returned to my base in Camp Lejeune, where I was questioned even more. There was whole investigation, and I had to give about 50 interviews to various agencies. But I kept to my story. Finally things came down and I was able to return to duty. Quite frankly, I did not want to be in Marine Corps anymore. I started looking up maritime history around that area, and turns out there was a British Navy had a similar incident around Bermudas. 35 sailors went missing, and never found while checking out a strange ship. When I looked at the picture of a missing crew, I saw George's face stare right at me. I recognized his face right away. That's how I knew I wasn't crazy. And I hope whatever happened to me will never happen to anybody again. About 6 months later, when I was already out of the Marine Corps, I watched some news piece about how there is a missing crew of a civilian research ship that was checking out an abandoned ship that later disappeared from the radar. And I remember what George said. It predates all of us. Maybe this ship is just manifestation of evil that takes form of a ship that roams Atlantic Ocean collecting innocent souls.